Welcome to episode 46 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's podcast, I catch up with Brian Gibson from the A-League on the eve of the A-League finals. And I have a chat with Peter Robert Casey about his journey to every stadium in the NBA.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, who is looking forward to the Eurosports Geek Trip, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. I am looking forward to it, so much so I'm actually on it already. I recorded a few of these interviews before I left, but in the rush to get everything done, I didn't get to put this together. So here I am. I'm in London at the moment. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast, either on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. So yes, I'm in London this week. Looking forward to catching up with a few teams. It's been a bank holiday here today, so a little bit tired from walking around, doing all the touristy type of stuff in London. Last week, though, I did catch up with Brian Gibson from the A-League and from the FFA, and Rob Skilchotti from the FFA was very kind to host us at Etihad Stadium for the first match of the A-League finals, and you probably would have been following along with the hashtag A-League finals. So I have a bit of a chat with Brian before that night kicks off, and again, thanks to Rob for hosting us for a little bit of a SB night meetup with a few of the crew from the AFL, cricket, and a few other sports coming along. It was a good night out at Etihad Stadium. So this week I'll have a chat with Brian, and then also catch up with a mate of mine who I met on the very first Sports Geek trip in New York, Peter Robert Casey, a bit of a trailblazer in the Twitter space as a sports journalist. We talk about his story, and then we also talk about his new project with Hardball Passport and BB Passport. Enables you to keep track of every single game that you've been to in the NBA and the MLB. So it's really good to catch up with him. And if you are in London, if you're listening to this and you are in London, looking forward to catching you all at Digital Sport London tomorrow. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/DS London to grab a ticket. Looking forward to catching up with Dan McLaren from the UK Sports Network and a few of the peeps from the UK. But first, here's my chat with Brian Gibson from the A-League. All right, very happy to welcome a good friend of mine, and we're here at Etihad Stadium for the A-League finals. He runs all the social accounts and drives all the social activity for the FFA, that's the Football Federation Australia. Brian Gibson, welcome to the Sports Geek podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Good to have you here at the A-League finals.
Hashtag A-League finals.
Hashtag A-League finals.
So this is the first game of the A-League finals with the Victory and Sydney FC. What I want to do is just, we're here to watch the game, and very happy to have a few people, a little mini sports biz night here at Etihad Stadium. I want to talk to you about a few initiatives that we've been working on for A-League finals. Do you want to kick us off with some of the things you're trying to do?
Yeah, so we're running an Instagram promotion where fans can use hashtag A-League finals, use the supporter hashtag for the club.
Yep.
And we'll pick winners. We'll run a Facebook vote, pick the winners, and with prizes. So with Instagram,
and I've already entered. I'm probably not eligible to win since I helped them put the promotion together. But you've got the A-League trophy out there, and also the Asian Cup trophies out there for people to take photos of. And you're pretty much just trying to get more people using the hashtag, showing it at the game, both whether they're around the game or at the game, I guess is the main thing. And have you seen, you've been watching it this week and keeping an eye on Instagram and things, are you seeing a bit of an uptick in fans getting excited for A-League finals?
Yeah, mainly more so in the last couple of days.
Yep.
That's pretty much the only hashtag we're using, so people are starting to use that as the hashtag, for the game.
Yeah, and so the other stuff that you're doing also is sort of playing off the teams going backwards and forwards, sort of like having that social playoff. What are the components you do with that?
So we're basically looking at their Facebook followers, so increasing gain across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yep.
Looking at their most popular Facebook posts to see which team can get the most likes on a single post.
Yep. So you're sort of rallying, getting that tribal nature of the fans out there, and just sort of saying, get behind your club. So tonight, we've got two pretty big teams from a following point of view, Sydney FC and Victory. Have you had a look at the numbers yet, or is it too early to tell?
Oh, it's a little bit too early to tell. It's been pretty busy, so I'll probably start looking at the numbers sort of tonight, see how they're going.
And have you seen a little bit of the fans rally behind the concert? The fact that you've given them, like what we've found in doing these type of things before, just giving the fans a specific reason to go, oh, you have to like this post this week, or you have to use the hashtag more, just amps up what would, it's a final, so it's normally going to be active, but gets those, Super Over fans amped up a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And the posts that the clubs have been doing to promote this, they've been getting a lot more shares than the normal posts, so it shows it's working straight away.
And you're dabbling a little bit with in the infographic space. I saw that you've got the matchup, and I'll put it in the show notes for this one, sort of just analysing all the stats, and that's something you're going to do throughout the finals?
Yeah, so we've basically got a match stats, so team versus team stats on the field, and then we've got a team versus team stats in social media.
Yep.
And we've thrown those up and the fans love them. They're just there, they're just infographics, we want more of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just so bite-sized, it's easy to consume and also easy to go, yes, I like it, or yes, I can share it. So, and I guess then the other part of your job, and the big part of your job coming up is, the Socceroos and the World Cup. How are the plans and everything going ahead for that?
Yeah, they're coming along quite well. We've pretty much put to bed pretty much everything that we want to do. So it's all in the pipeline now. It's just a matter of executing it over on the ground there and back here. So we're going to have a team of 5 or 6 people across social. So some in Brazil, some back here, just taking fans. They can't get there. We'll take them on that journey.
Yeah, and the idea is that you and we've worked on it before, and we've had Rob on the podcast previously talking about how the Socceroos just unite all of Australia and everyone gets behind them, and that's where you're going to have that wide, breadth of fan. You'll have the fans that love their football and know everything backwards, and then there'll be I'm an Australian, so I'm following the Socceroos, and when they go out and play, we're not. Everyone's going to be behind them, and you're just going to have to be inundated. The timeline is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's going to be 24/7 coverage from us from a social media point of view, so it's going to be pretty full on.
Well, Brian, good luck for the A-League finals, and looking forward to a big World Cup. But I'm sure we will probably catch up with you before the World Cup kicks in.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Sean.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Brian Gibson there, Gibbo Football on Twitter. If you're not following Brian, he, as I said there in the interview, he is looking after all things social at the FFA, which includes the A-League, the Socceroos and the FFA, and he's really doing a great job, and has got a big year ahead of him with the World Cup, as we said. And I'll be catching up with Brian before the Socceroos head over for the World Cup, because we've got some really good plans for the Socceroos. My next guest, I won't give too much introduction to, because we do talk about it in the interview, but you can follow him on Twitter, Peter_R_Casey. An absolute trailblazer in the space of sports journalism, and specifically around Twitter, and we talk about that as I met Peter back in 2010 on one of my first Sports Geek trips, and it's really what these trips are about: meeting and connecting with people, finding out what they're doing, and then staying in touch and finding out what they're doing from the initial beginnings that Sports Geek was. Both Pete and I have gone on a journey over the last 4 years. So here is my chat with Peter Robert Casey from the websites Hardball Passport and BB Passport. Very happy to welcome a long-time friend of mine, all the way from New York City, Peter Robert Casey. Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast, Pete.
Sean, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, what I wanted to get you on, we have known each other for a fair while now, but I want to talk to you about your new site that you've just launched. You've just done a second sport. First sport was basketball, and the second sport now is baseball with bbpassport.com and hardballpassport.com. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what they are and what you're trying to do with those sites?
Sure. So much like it sounds, like a passport does, is for fans, it allows you to track your entire game-going journey over time, where you've been, where you're at, and where you're going. And what that means is we all tend to keep our ticket stubs after we go to a match or a game, and those ticket stubs generally serve as a reminder of those games and all the memories that surround those games. So you may want to a basketball game, NBA game with your father, with your son, or with even your girlfriend or wife. And that ticket stub is kind of that tangible evidence that I was there. So basketball passport and hardball passport basically allow you to digitize those so you can track over time where you've been, the number of matches you've seen, the best performances that you witnessed, the number of unique venues that you may have seen in your history. And it's a way to track that over time.
I mean, when you first sent it to me and said, check it out, I said, I've been doing it manually anyway. Like I'm keeping track of how many Major League Baseball ballparks I've been to, and NBA arenas I've been to, and you can check it out at SeanCallender.com/goals. I'm up to 12 MLB parks now because I was able to tick the SCG, the Sydney Cricket Ground. I don't think that one's going to be a tough one for you to mark off because they're not going to come back for another 4 years. But it was able to tick that off with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks coming to town. So how have you and it's really cool because, again, to give a bit of back history of how I know you, when I did my first Sports Geek trip, that's exactly what I did. I went to a couple of games in LA, a couple of games in Dallas, and then I finished up the trip in New York. And we actually met. It was actually as a byproduct of using the basketball one, the BB passport. I went in and went venue, and I went Madison Square Garden. I went previous year, and I knew the times that I was there. And January 23, 2010, Villanova played St. John's. Unfortunately, your St. John's did not get up. It was a 10-point loss, 71-81. So that kind of thing, and I have got all those ticket stubs on a board in my office. Do you want to give, I guess, people a little bit of backstory from yourself, being, you were one of the first guys that really took to Twitter in the sports journalism space with your work at St. John's?
Yeah, so back in 2009, which seems so long ago in the Twitter sphere, I received a press credential to cover the St. John's men's basketball team exclusively on my Twitter account. And if you recall, at that time, it was still challenging for bloggers to get press row access. So
the
story itself of getting a credential to do so on Twitter, and how it goes if you're a beat writer, once the buzzer sounds at the end of the basketball game, you're generally following your story at that time. And my job kind of ended at that point. I was just tweeting out live updates during the game. And the whole idea was capture the things that the camera wasn't capturing. So people who were at home watching the St. John's game on television, giving them the sights, the sounds, the smells, the real-time nature of quotes, things that I was hearing and seeing. And it was a unique way to cover basketball back in 2009. And the beat writers at that time weren't even on Twitter. So come a long way. Obviously, now it's just natural and a normal part of how reporters cover basketball and any sport for that matter. So that was unique in 2009. I got a lot of press coverage nationally, the New York Times, Sports Illustrated, Mashable, ESPN. And it really opened doors for my career. The New York Knicks then hired me right after that to be their first social media specialist and editor-in-chief of KnicksNow.com. So it was a great opportunity. Something that we take for granted now, but back then it was kind of a news story.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, I think it was, credentialed microblogger, because I didn't even know, what a social media guy was or someone that was a professional tweeter. Like, all the terms are still getting created. And that's the good thing about things like social media. It allows guys like you and I to connect from other sides of the country. And, I remember, back in January 2010, we were tweeting each other backwards and forwards to find out where we were going to meet after the game. So you launched the basketball one first, and to launch it, you went on a ridiculous. I like to pride myself on my Sports Geek trips, but you completely outdid what I do. You went to 30 NBA stadiums in 30 days. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like?
Sure. So as a way we wanted to launch Basketball Passport properly and do so in a way that was authentic to the site, which is breaking through the television filter and getting out to games. And one of the features, it's a fun feature on both Basketball Passport and Hardball Passport, are arena challenges or stadium challenges for baseball. and you earn stamps. It's a passport, so you earn stamps when you complete a challenge. And as the founder and ambassador for Basketball Passport, I wanted to do the most aggressive challenge, which is the All NBA Arenas Challenge. And I thought it would be a fun way to do some storytelling around Passport by getting out there, getting the product in the hands, and getting people to log in and talk about it. So I took a month off of work at the time, and this started November 7th in Miami, and I literally went through all 29 arenas. As you know, the Lakers and the Clippers share the Staples Center, so I got to see both of those games separately in December. And then I ended my journey on the 6th in Boston, front row. The vice president of the Celtics put my wife and I literally feet on the floor. So amazing trip, and we got so much more publicity than I could have ever anticipated. So it was a great way to build awareness of the site.
Well, it's terrific. I'm only still I've logged some of my games that I've been to, but I've got to actually go through my ticket stubs of the first couple of games that I have been to see if I can get there. That All NBA Arena Challenge is something that I will accept that challenge, but it might take me a few more years. I don't think I'm crazy enough to do it in 1 month. How have you? I mean, I'd be interested to know, how have you found the baseball? Because the baseball fans are almost obsessive about their stats and the history and tracking everything. Have you found a difference between basketball fans and baseball fans on use of the site, and how many fans want to get on?
That's a great point, Sean. You're right. So the reason why I wanted to do the trip for basketball was there's a learning curve. These behaviors weren't, normal behaviors of keeping track of every game I've been to in a spreadsheet, or, as you know, when you go to a baseball game, people literally keep score on a scorecard. And those behaviors were there. So we started with basketball because that's my background. It's what I know. It's where my relationships reside. But the concept of passporting and chronicling your personal journey as a fan was already there for baseball. So we did notice a significant spike. Even during beta testing, for example, I kind of just teased it out on Reddit and the subreddit for baseball, and it went haywire. I literally had to shut down. I had a limited amount of spots as it was, just because we wanted to, control beta testing. But just already in the first 2 weeks, we've already had 50,000 logged games on Hardball Passport. So people are going way back to 1975, where our database starts for Major League games, and all the way back to 2002 for minor league games. So it really took off. And we kind of predicted that, not to that extreme, but we knew it was going to be more popular than basketball, just because, like you said, their fans are obsessive. They keep spreadsheets, they keep text files, they hang on to those ticket stubs like, they're near and dear to them.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. Yeah, you've had 52,000 total check-ins. I guess one question I did have, and I was always, as I was trying to do a bit of, go back to mine, and I was going back to seat when I went to Fenway in 2012, and then last year was able to go to Kaufman to see the Royals, and I didn't have the stubs, or I've lost the stubs. But what I was able to do was to go to my Foursquare and say, when was I at the baseball? Have you thought about bringing in those kind of social networks to say, integrate Foursquare with your login, and we'll automatically, keep your check-ins as you're going along?
Yeah, so we do want to leverage these existing platforms and all the momentum that they already have versus trying to compete with them, just because, you can't do that. But one of the areas that we thought would be really crucial is using Instagram's API, specifically because every photo there is geotagged with a timestamp on it. And it'd be much easier to, that's where people are placing their photos now, is in Instagram. So fans, as soon as they get to their seat, or sometimes even outside the arena, they take that photo and proves that they were there, kind of show off, hey, I'm at the game, you're not.
Yep.
Natural behavior for fans. So why not, being able to look at when a fan is within 0.1 mile of an arena on a game night, you can say, hey, do you want to add these to your passport? That would make the most sense. And to go a step further, the biggest priority in 2015, since we live in a mobile-first society, is to have that mobile native app so that when you're there, you can immediately add it to your passport. Because you don't want to have any friction
Yep.
with the experience. You want people to be able to do this stuff naturally. Not many people are interested in going way back, scanning an old photo and tying it to a game. So you have to do it when they're there. So yes, using what's already out there, whether it's a Foursquare check-in API or Instagram photos. And the next big thing is Facebook login and Twitter login, so that, again, you don't have to create a profile. It's already done for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's correct. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I'm still a Foursquare fan, but, from if you're looking at geo apps, Instagram is so far out in front these days, and ballparks and stadiums are what get Instagrammed. I mean, I still think,
that's right.
Fenway and AT&T Park. I think AT&T Park is one of the most Instagram venues on the earth, but partly it's a combination of picturesque scene, terrific Wi-Fi, the fact that people can get coverage, and that bragging right. You want to tell people you're at the baseball, or you want to tell people you're at the you're at the football. So I guess that leads you to so also in the plans is to bring in NFL stadiums and then also NHL.
Exactly. So Football Passport, the goal is to launch that on August 28th, and it's going to include all your NFL games and then even your college football games that you've been to in college, arena. And just because actually college may even be bigger than NFL because of the traveling culture and the rabid, fandom that exists around college football, just from the alumni base. So it's really key that we do that, college and pro.
Well, because the thing is, with college, you would have people that have said, "Oh, this is my 1000th game of Michigan, and I've watched every game for the last 27 years." Because again, they're in that same super fandom. I guess as I'm about to head off to my Europe trip, is there any plans in the agenda to tap into the large world that is the world of football and look at the world game, soccer, and I'm guessing you've got a system in place now where it's just a matter of getting the database of the games and the venues, and once the structure's there, you can build that site.
That's exactly it, and that's going to be the fifth sport, and probably the most important sport, just because of the global nature of that game. And I mean, it's the world's largest sport. Let's not kid ourselves. The challenge for us is the language differences around the globe. So, but the opportunity to tackle football, from a global nature is a massive one, and we have to do it. But we want to go into that just because we know that's the big beast. We want to go into that with a lot of momentum, with the infrastructure, like you mentioned. We have the interface built out. We know how to see how it interacts with the database on the back end. And the beauty of it is, if you create an account on Basketball Passport, it works for hardball, and it will work for any future sport as well. So all your games are in one place, so that when the mobile app comes out, you're not going to have 5 different apps. It's one app. It's a singular Sports Passport app. So football will be the fifth sport, and definitely looking forward to that challenge.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. So they can find the websites at bbpassport.com and hardballpassport.com. I'll have the links and the links to both of those sites in the show notes, and they can find you. You're still tweeting away at Peter_R_Casey. If I've got that correct.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. And next time I'm back in New York City, we'll have to catch up for a beer.
Absolutely. And have a safe trip, and hope you get to many games while you're in Europe.
No worries, mate.
Do you tumble? Go to tumbler.sportsgeekhq.com. Send in your sounds of the game. Email Sean at sportsgeekhq.com.
Thanks again to Peter Robert Casey for joining me on the podcast. I look forward to actually going through my ticket stubs, definitely putting in all the games I've been on Sports Geek trips. As I said in my chat, I previously kept track of all the MLB games and NBA stadiums that I've been to. I just haven't been recording the games and those kind of things. So if you go to SeanCallender.com/goals, that's where I'm actually keeping a list of how many games or how many venues I've been to. but now I'll do it via hardball and basketball passport. So really look forward to seeing how it evolves, Pete, and what it can be done with. The fact that fans do love checking in is one of the most obvious things that fans want to do. Well, that noise that you can hear is from the Eels and Roosters at Parramatta. They're not happy. And thanks to Sports Geek podcast listener Pies Josh for sending in the Sounds of the Game this week. I mistakenly saw his Twitter handle and assumed he was a Collingwood supporter. He isn't a Collingwood supporter. He's actually a Foundation Giants member. He just likes pies, and there's nothing wrong with that, Josh. Who doesn't like a good pie? That's it for this episode of the Sports Geek podcast. One short plug, if I may. Really great response to the latest Beers, Blokes and Business podcast. We were lucky enough to have Will Anderson come into Sports Geek HQ and talk about his business. Some great insights in there on content marketing, developing your fan base. So really some great takeaways there for people in fan development. Simply go to beersblokesbusiness.com/37 to grab that, and you can find Beers Blokes Business in iTunes. Well, that's the clock giving me the wind-up to tell me to get out of this episode. Now, this is episode 46 of the Sports Geek podcast, so it's getting a little bit harder to find jersey numbers and things like that. So this year I've gone for the year 1946, and allows me to sneak in another player that I could have used for the number 42, and that would be Jackie Robinson, who played for the Montreal Royals, a AAA affiliate of the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1946. And he became the first African-American to play organised baseball. And obviously, his key number is 42. So it just allows me to get past that. Thank you again for listening to the Sports Geek podcast. Thank you for the people who've left reviews on iTunes. You can leave a review by just going to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Keep following the A-League finals via Twitter and Instagram, and keep an eye on what Brian is trying to do. Closing 2 cents this week is all about networking. Always be networking. It's one of the things that I do love doing. So I hope to see anybody who is in London who works in digital sport at Digisport London.
Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Listen to Beers, Blokes and Business at beersblokesbusiness.com. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.